Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And today is September 26, 2019, and this is the time of year where we are delivered and hear an annual report on our district pursuant to Arkansas law. And I believe Dr. Weber is going to step up to the podium and lead us through that report.
Good evening.
Evening.
This presentation is our annual report to patrons, and this report will be posted later on the Fayetteville Public Schools website. The report, according to Arkansas guidelines, the annual report covers 5 areas. The first area is accreditation status. The second area is state requirements, student performance, which there'll be a lot of in tonight's presentation. Fourth is progress towards school level improvement plan. As you recall, that's the new acronym SLIP. And later this evening, we'll hear from Mickey McFetridge. He'll provide a report on what our schools are doing tomorrow while our students are out on a dismissal day, what our teachers are doing with the principals related to the school level improvement plan. And fifth, federal programs report. So Dr. Colbert has provided me with these details, and I'm presenting this on behalf of the superintendent this evening. This is from 2018-19, so that's important for the community to understand that the report is based on last year's students and staff. So over 10,000 students, and we continue to grow as a school district. 581 classified staff and 859 certified staff, with 80 national board certified teachers in our school district, and an average teacher salary of $59,800. As you know, the demographics for our students, but some of the community members in the audience may not know, our demographics continue to change well with trends in Northwest Arkansas. And so we are excited with the change in the demographics because this brings new families almost each month, if not weekly, in some schools. We have about 15% special education and approximately 10.46 gifted and talented. We call it GT. English as a second language continues to grow in Fayetteville Public Schools at 7.8%, and 39% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. I think that last one is a little bit, out of all the data so far, that last number is a little bit deceptive because some schools may be 70, 80% plus free and reduced lunch. So you may say, well, Fayetteville Public Schools only has 39% free and reduced lunch. That's on average out of our 16 schools, but within a school, the number can be double that in some cases.
Stephen, if I can interrupt, nationally the numbers are about 51 or 52%, right? I think.
I don't have that data, but I
there.
trust you.
Yeah.
Very proud of our students, all of our students, but this group has recently, and so this is different. This is the 2018 National Merit Semifinalists, the most in Arkansas from any high school. We tied with Little Rock Central High School, so we're very proud of our students and very proud of the teachers and their parents who have raised them. Won't be able to go into depth on this, but as I mentioned earlier, this will be highlighted on the Fayetteville Public Schools website. So several graphs with a lot of bars that may be difficult to read from where you're sitting in the audience. From 3rd through 10th grade, red stands for science, the green bar stands for math, and the blue bar stands for literacy. So this is not a comparison. This is all 3rd grade in a given year. So the snapshot shows red for science, green for math, and blue for literacy. And you can see some ups and downs, but once again, what you're looking at is an overall snapshot of the students who were ready or exceed what the state defines as readiness. In this next slide, this is English scores. And this is from 2016 to 2019. So once again, 3rd through 10th grade from 2016 to 2019. Staying pretty steady there in our scores, but the English Language Arts Task Force, something I'll present at the board meeting this evening, has just started meeting. As recently as last week, we had our first 2 meetings with over 50 teachers in pre-K through high school. So the board-approved curriculum review cycle, we believe, will help us with all of these data points, and we are definitely focused on English this calendar year. Our math scores from 2016 in the blue bar going to the yellow bar with 2019. We have some areas to work on. You can see particularly as the students get into secondary, there's some areas of concern for our school district, and those are areas that we will continue to focus on. We've already had our math task force, so I can't really say that the 2016 through 2019 data could be highly impacted by the math task force work. So we feel like we're making progress in the right direction. Reading scores, once again, will be addressed by the ELA task force. This past week, Dr. Kelly Dugan came and presented the district data specifically for ELA and for reading, and helped us identify strengths and areas for improvement. So once again, a real clear focus by our school district this year. Some of our best teachers from all 16 schools are a part of this task force to make continuous improvement and to focus on the areas where we need to grow, both as teachers and as students. Science scores. As you know, the science task force was last year, so we're implementing brand new science curriculum and materials this year that the board approved. So science scores are kind of up and down depending on the grade level, but once again, start to go down in some of the secondary grades. So a little bit higher in 6th and 7th grade and starting to drop off after middle school. So things that we need to address. The reading by cohort. And once again, this is a cohort, so all of the class of 2028 would be the very first bar, ending with the very last bar, which says all of 2021. This is one of those that's a lot easier to just kind of read once it's posted on the website. There's a lot to read here, and I won't highlight every part of it. Same with science by cohort. Math. And then as we look at the overall scholarships received by the class of 2019, it's been said before, but it should be said again in the annual report, that this class earned $16,054,630 in scholarships awarded and had 16 national merit finalists. It's pretty impressive if you look across the United States at that amount of scholarships for this size school and that number of national merit finalists, and 741 graduates. We're very proud of all the graduates, but you also want to say what's missing, who's missing. There were kids missing in that class and in that cohort, and we want to continue to get closer and closer to 100% and maybe one day achieve that goal of 100% graduation, because that's always the goal. A lot to be proud of, and Dr. Dostal and our high school staff are always very modest to give credit to K-8 teachers. They realize that high school readiness doesn't start the first day of 9th grade. It begins in pre-K through 8th grade. So they give a lot of credit to the people who prepare the kids before high school. So whether it's a positive piece of data or something that kind of makes us kind of step back and pause, we realize these are all our students. It doesn't matter which feeder school, this is our school district, and all of us are working together, which is much of what the work will be tomorrow. When the students are not at school, the teachers will be working after Dr. Colbert's State of the District address to focus on the SLIP and the school improvement plans on how they can do better on just the data that I'm sharing tonight. So this is not just some slide presentation that we're sharing. This is something that our teachers are focused on, and they will go even deeper because they will be focused on school data. We are always proud of our school district and our high school students, but this is a particularly strong class. The class of 2019, the top 100 students had an average score on their ACT of 32. It's very rare to have that many students with an average score of 32. And then you can see the other scores. When you get into the top 25 students, the average score was a 35, near perfect. As I said, Mr. McFetridge will present, and when he presents, he'll share more details about what will be taking place with the school level improvement plan tomorrow and throughout the school year. But for those in the community and in the audience, the purpose of this is to establish learning goals school by school and to connect to the district strategic plan, which we're very excited about. The strategic plan is brand new, and this will be one of the first chances and opportunities for the schools to align their work to the new strategic plan that Dr. Colbert introduced to staff at convocation. Evidence-based strategies are selected to help schools meet their school-wide plan, and strategies that Mr. McFetridge works with each principal on are action steps. not just hopes, not just goals, but what are you going to do in the next 2 months to reach students who aren't learning? What are you going to do in the next 3 months to accelerate for students who already know the material? A timeline and success indicators. So it's very scripted, but it's also the way any business would roll out a business plan. The only difference is sometimes in business, you know, Amazon or whatever the company is has a product, and the product is the same all the way down the assembly line. Each one of our students are not a product. They come to us with different readiness levels and different abilities, and it's our goal to prepare each student for the next grade level and beyond. So this is important work. When we talk about school improvement plan, we're not talking about a rubber stamp approval, maybe the way it could have been 10 or 20 years ago in Arkansas. We're talking about a plan. We have more data than we've ever had before, and we know what we need to do. We just need to make that plan on what all teachers will do to help all students. The Fayetteville Public School Board will approve this plan in the month of July. Those of you that have been on the board for a while remember this every year, formerly called ACCIP. And the final plan is sent to the state level in August. Federal funding is also something that Mr. McFetridge is in charge of. He works with federal funding, and he's our director of federal programs. So these are the allocations for Title I, Title II, and Title III. And each of those indicate what the Title I stands for. So if someone said, what are we doing with those Title I funds, Mr. McFetridge, they could go to our district website, or a board member could refer a patron to our website, and this would help people see, yes, it's a lot of money, but this is what we're providing. Building interventions, building professional learning, academic interventionists. Title IIA, what are we doing with the funds provided by the federal government? Approximately $240,000. Professional development for staff, including math training, effective literacy, National Science Teaching Conference, and substitutes to allow for teacher training. So ongoing continuous improvement for our staff. Title III addresses supplemental salaries and benefits, supplemental translation, interpretation services, and parental involvement services. Alternative learning. This will be salaries, benefits, and supplies for our ALPS school, and that's an allocation of $949,032. But once again, when you look at that large figure, a lot of that is also in salaries and benefits. English language learners. This is a district-wide program co-chaired by Megan Godfrey and Kristen Graham. They do an excellent job, and under their leadership, they oversee funds, they work with Glenda, they also work with Mickey McFetridge with supplemental teacher salaries, professional development, software license, and trying to provide the ongoing professional development for our teachers. One thing we're trying to do and grow the program is not just provide training for our ESL teachers, but also provide training for our general education teachers. For our general education teachers have the same students in their classroom, so we're trying to do a better job of equipping them with the tools they need to teach all students. The National School Lunch Act, which board members are familiar with, these funds are provided, and it's quite a large fund, approximately $2 million, for instructional facilitators, supplemental instructional program licenses for at-risk students, which is very important in our district, and critically important this day and age, is supplemental nurses and social workers. The board talks about this on a regular basis, the critical need for school nurses and social workers. And under Melissa Thomas and Joy Shirley, they receive training and have regular meetings, but we continue to grow those programs, and we continue to have a need for those types of workers. So this funding is very important to Fayetteville Public Schools. As part of tonight's update, I also want to highlight professional learning under the leadership of Dr. Nandra Campbell. These funds are provided with staff development expenses and transition related to professional development. We are an accredited school district. Our accreditation was renewed and was received in May 2019, and just wanted to say that all 16 schools are accredited. This next slide talks about the status. Sometimes board members ask, what about different teachers? Are they fully licensed? What are they working to get additional licensure plans? And this outlines special education, media specialist, English language arts, math, career development, and theater as some areas where teachers are working, but the state recognizes that. So I'll go back to the previous slide. You're not penalized on your accreditation if you have people working towards the right areas and you're able to document that. So that all comes under Greg's office in Human Resources and Dr. Tammy Tucker as well. Soft drink revenue. The district received $32,000 in competitive beverage funding from Coca-Cola, which was used for field trips to the Walton Arts Center and student incentives. I'd never seen anything like the Walton Arts Center till I moved back to Arkansas. So, you know, the Walton Arts Center does unbelievable work that would be expensive. Some of those field trips would be cost prohibitive for our families, but that is a great opportunity for our students to have that right here in our backyard. And these funds offset expenses that would be charged to students for field trips. Community involvement. We have one of our elected officials in this picture. All of our elected officials have recently visited our school district. As you know, we had Meet Your Legislator Day, Meet Your Representative Day. We've also had great support from the mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, our parents, our business sponsors. You just about can't go in an elementary school, and it's hard to find an elementary school that doesn't have 4 or 5 plus business sponsors. So this community, as you know, is very open to public schools, and they support us. So we want to acknowledge in the report to patrons our thanks for our elected officials, our families, and our business sponsors. As far as community involvement goes, this is our Volunteer of the Year. We celebrated her and all the volunteers of the year at a banquet each year. The monthly meetings with the PTO at the PTO Council, where leaders and parents provide Dr. Colbert with information about updates and recommendations. And we also, Dr. Morano and I co-lead a group called the Academic Advisory Group, where this year we've asked parent representatives from all of our schools to serve and to provide us with updates and recommendations related to what they're seeing and hearing in their school. So we feel like this is two-way communication. We try not to have meetings where we're constantly delivering updates, but we want to hear from our parents, and our principals do a great job as well of hosting meetings where parents' voices are heard and parents can be leaders rather than just coming to the school to volunteer only. The staff involvement with our Chamber of Commerce, our civic groups, our Boys and Girls Club, the University of Arkansas, Crystal Bridges, and the list goes on and on. As I said, the people who are lined up to support Fayetteville Public Schools, and some of it does vary by school. Some schools may have 5 businesses, the other school has 5 different businesses, but we're very fortunate to be in a community that embraces public education the way Fayetteville does in Northwest Arkansas. As far as social media goes, we're doing well in this area as well under the leadership of Holly Johnson and Alan Wilburn. In this area, we have Fayetteville Public Schools is highlighted for the number of Facebook likes with 28,848 and Instagram followers with 3,784. I'm sure this was not in the report 10 years ago, but this is a new way to communicate with families, and we are reaching families, and we are also having families post on our pages. And there are some other areas where we don't have as many followers on other social media, but between Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, compared with other school districts and their enrollment, we are leading in 2 of the 3 areas, Facebook likes and Instagram followers. And it is worthy to note this because this is the way a lot of our younger families communicate. There's a kind of a generation gap, and people aren't communicating the way they used to. But you will still get a phone call from a principal. You'll still get an email or a hard copy newsletter from a principal. This is just more timely, where a principal or teacher can post something in real time that's going on in a classroom, and we can all celebrate teaching and learning and see the great things in Fayetteville Public Schools. Mr. Chair, that concludes the annual report, and at this time I'll take any questions from the board.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weber. Are there any questions from the board on the annual report? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Any questions from the floor? I don't see any. I think you covered everything.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Weber. Okay, we're going to move into our regular meeting now with...
1 minute so we can rest of honorees.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We will take a 1-minute break. How's that? come in, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I believe we're going to start off with a crew from Owl Creek, and I see Mr. Kraft, and I saw Mr. Pledger in the back. Mr. Kraft, what do you have for us today?
Good evening, Mr. Eichmann, board, Dr. Cohort. Thank you guys for having us tonight. We have a group of students. Unfortunately, we had a few that got sick this evening and had to go home from school a little early. But these students were selected by some teachers for representing our school and outstanding leadership inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. And we're very proud to have them represent our school and our district this evening. Ryan, you want to start it off?
My name is Ryan Derby. I'm in 6th grade, and I go to Owl Creek, obviously.
My name is Ella Henderson, and I am in 5th grade.
My name's Eli Schwartzman, and I go to Owl Creek, and I'm in the 6th grade.
My name is Sage Anderson, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Lydia Washington, and I'm in 3rd grade.
My name is Brendan Jackson, and I'm in 5th grade.
My name is Mia Bussell, and I'm in 3rd grade. Now please stand for the pledge.
Great.
Parents, if you'd like to take a picture, please come on up. Okay, everybody up here?
Hey, how you doing?
Here we go, up here, 1, 2, 3. There we go, good job.
Good job, guys.
Okay, next up, we're going to have a roll call, and Alan.
Yes, sir. Justin Eichmann,
Here.
Nika Weitzman,
Here.
Megan Hurley,
Here.
Tim Hudson,
Here.
Dr. Bob Moranto,
Here.
Garrett B. Richardson,
Here.
Keaton Smith.
Here.
Okay, we are back in the groove with a recognition agenda, and quite a lengthy one tonight. We'll begin with the Above and Beyond Awards that are presented each month with our help with Truity Credit Union, and here to present them, please welcome Kirby Harris.
Will Jerry Burkett join me at the front? Jerry is a bus driver with the Transportation Department, and a parent wrote the following. Mr. Burkett drives bus TT Route 124 home from McNair in the afternoons. This is the first year my son has ridden the bus. He was really nervous about it, but Mr. Burkett is so kind to my son and makes sure he arrives home safely each day. Words cannot express my gratitude for Mr. Burkett for ensuring my son's safety. And another nomination reads, imagine you were a child attending a school new to you for the first time. Then imagine that you were also riding a bus home for the first time. Now picture the road you live on, a well-traveled road with major construction on one side. These may well be your anxious thoughts. Okay, where do I catch bus TT? Where should I sit on the bus? Where should I get off? How can I cross the road to get to my house without getting run over? A seasoned, caring professional, Jerry Burkett, knows how to ease anxieties such as these and deliver his student riders to their homes safely. In this child's case, Mr. Jerry wisely let him, my grandson, off right in front of his house rather than have him dodge construction equipment in crossing the road. Both Mr. Jerry and my grandson were all smiles at this special delivery. So was I. Thank you, Mr. Jerry, for going above and beyond. Congratulations.
This summer, at the annual meeting of the Arkansas Association of Educational Administrators, one of our own administrators received a statewide award. Will Dr. Weaver please come forward? At that meeting, his peers selected him as the Arkansas Association of Curriculum Instruction Administrators Administrator of the Year. Dr. Moranto.
This is just a huge honor. So I guess I could read the official thing. But first I'll say, there's a lot of awards around, but I see the work you do every day, 12, sometimes 13 hours. I really always want to thank your wife because she's incredibly patient, a lot of times 6, 7 days a week. And what I really love is you take teachers and parents seriously. And I say this a lot, I'm going to go back to it. I think it was 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, when you were planning what we're going to do with curriculum, and I said, okay, we've had a lot of different initiatives over the years. Why should teachers take this one seriously? And you had the best answer ever. You said, because they're going to do it, because I'm going to work with them, and 2 subjects at a time, we're going to have a coherent curriculum. And people do a lot better job implementing something if they've actually had a hand in it. Your leadership style recognizes that, and that's why you hugely deserve this award, and I'm so happy you're getting it. Okay, let me read the official thing. Your outstanding work in leading our Office of Technology and Learning, our Office of Teaching and Learning, is drawing well-deserved notice from around the state and further enhancing Fayetteville's long tradition of leadership in teaching and curriculum. Please accept our sincere thanks and congratulations. Thanks so much.
There's a very select club at Fayetteville High School, and just about every year it gets a couple of new members. Well, this year there's another member to that club, and it's the Perfect ACT Score Club. Abigail Chang, would you please come forward? And if I'm correct, you took the exam as a sophomore, correct? Because you're a junior this year, so this was last spring. So you made a perfect score as a sophomore. Mr. Wright.
So, Abigail, do you take it again? I mean, or do you just stop, right? I mean, are you that confident you can just keep on taking it? And that is truly remarkable. I didn't know that you took this as a sophomore, and so it's quite an accomplishment by you. And this is your award, and I know you have many who are undoubtedly very proud of you, your family, and teachers, certainly the board, administration here, and the people in the audience. But that's a very special and impressive accomplishment. So the board would like to give you this award, which reads, Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor Abigail Chang for making the highest score possible on the ACT exam. Your very impressive performance on the ACT exam places you among the highest performing students at FHS and in the nation, and will draw the attention of many college and university recruiters. Have you heard from a few of those? A couple? Yeah, I would think so. We're confident that many more accolades will come your way. Please accept our sincere congratulations.
The JAG program, which is Jobs for Arkansas Graduates at Fayetteville High School, recently received the 5 of 5 State Standard Award. And would Shanna Trout, the JAG specialist at Fayetteville High School, please come forward? Those 5 standards are graduation rate, employment rate, positive outcome rate, full-time jobs rate, and full-time placement rate. Mr. Hudson.
So the Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor the FHS JAG program for receiving the 5 of 5 Performance Outcome Standards Award. Your outstanding work in supporting students, giving them work-based learning experiences, and encouraging them to achieve high school graduation is paying dividends. Thanks to you, even more of our students are now equipped for success. Please accept our sincere thanks and congratulations.
And another group that makes frequent appearances here is the Woodland Yearbook staff. With the Woodland Yearbook staff and their sponsor, Andrew Young, please come forward. Will you guys introduce yourself and what grade you're in?
I'm Lindley and I'm in the 8th grade. I'm Caroline and I'm in 9th grade at FHS. I'm Google and I'm in 9th grade at FHS. I'm Ellie and I'm in 9th grade at FHS.
Congratulations, guys. I'm Mr. Young. It's true, you guys are here quite often, I think almost every year, it seems like. And to have a teacher recognized just recently as Teacher of the Year, I'm sure that's a contributing factor. So, but good job, good work, guys. Recognition of outstanding achievement, Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor the Woodland Roundup yearbook staff for receiving a gold medal critique from the Columbia Scholastic Press Association. Here is yet another award for your very crowded trophy case. You have set a standard of excellence for the Roundup that each new staff must work hard to uphold, and that is exactly as it should be. Please accept our proud congratulations. Good luck.
Picture, please come on up. Anybody in there? Okay, parents? And principal? Okay, and another area where Fayetteville Public School students perform very well each year is in the Arkansas Council of Teachers of Mathematics state exam. Would Greenlee Crow and Kimming Ming please come forward? All right. Okay. Now, Greenlee, right? First place in pre-cal and trigonometry in the state. And Kimming was first place in Algebra 1 in the state. Now you are, let's in the...
I'm in 8th grade and I'm in Woodland Junior High School.
I'm now in 11th grade at Fayetteville High School.
These scores were achieved last year when they were 7th grade and 10th grades. So, Mr. Richardson, if you'll do the first one.
Hello? Kimming, I think I saw your Twitter page where you've already posted your winnings for this Algebra 2. Is that correct? No? Well, I'd like to say is Kimming Ming for winning first place in algebra in the 2019 Arkansas Council of Teachers of Mathematics State Contest. Your ability to use your mathematical knowledge and outperform the state's top students is very impressive. Your math skills and your competitive spirit will serve you well in college and in your career. Please accept our sincere congratulations.
Yeah, come on.
All right. Well, congratulations on your victory as well. To Greenlee Crow for winning first place in pre-calculus trigonometry at the 2019 Arkansas Council of Teachers of Mathematics state contest. Your ability to use your mathematical knowledge and outperform the state's top students is very impressive. Your math skills and your competitive spirit will serve you well in college and in your career. Please accept our sincere congratulations.
There we go. All right. And our final honoree this evening is a familiar face. She's been to the board before to be recognized for her perfect ACT score, but she achieved another honor earlier this year. She was elected the national president of the Mu Alpha Theta Student Honor Society. Amanda Thompson, would you please come forward?
Congratulations, Amanda. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mu Alpha Theta Society, Honor Society, it is the National Society for Mathematics Honors for high school and two-year college students, and there are 124,000 students in this society, and representatives from 2,600 schools and 24 countries. So it's a big deal, what you've done. We're really proud of you. Thanks for being in Fayetteville. Amanda Thompson, we are well aware of your abilities as an excellent student in the classroom, and we're equally pleased to see this national leadership opportunity come your way. We're fully confident you will represent Fayetteville and Arkansas with skill and grace. Please accept our sincere congratulations. I also want to say that it's just really fun to love stuff, enough to do as well as you're doing. I hope that beyond all the stuff that you really enjoy, like the pleasure of math and the pleasure of leadership. It's really exciting.
The recognition agenda. Mr. Eichmann.
Okay, thank you. Now into citizen participation. And was there heard there might be somebody who was interested in speaking? Going once from the audience? Going twice? Because I did not receive any forms. So, okay, well, I'm going to move on and go over to the next part of the agenda, which is reports, board member liaison reports. And first up is, well, I'm going to go ahead and do mine. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of order here in front of me. Just a quick announcement regarding the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. Got this note from Cambry that, of course, next Tuesday, October the 1st, is the Hall of Honor. I believe it starts at 5:30, dinner at 6:30. Reception at 7:30 type thing. Inducting 3 alum and 1 former teacher of Fayetteville Public Schools. It's Lala Greenwood, Conrad Odom, Mariah Reith, and Dr. Carmen Lyerly. And so that'll be Tuesday night, a big event. So if you haven't already reserved, please go ahead and do that. And then, as you may have seen in a couple of the news stories, a campaign that the foundation is doing, a capital campaign is in a quiet stage, has gone public, and it is a capital campaign to raise funds to provide more substantial grants to grow the endowment, but to be able to they already do a really amazing job of providing micro grants, smaller grants to teachers and staff members in our district who are doing very special things, who apply for them. And we get to see those roll out every 3 times a year now. But these are, this capital campaign is targeted on getting funds to do kind of larger, more systemic projects. And the focus that they've been working on lately is programs that would pertain to pre-K, trade skills type programs, VOTEC, and ACT college prep and career prep areas, which coincidentally are also areas that we have identified in our strategic plan, but also coincidentally, and this isn't really a coincidence, there are areas of interest in our community where we have a lot of business and public entity interest in those areas as well. City of Fayetteville, University of Arkansas, local businesses that are interested in participating in various ways. So there's some exciting stuff that's happening there. That campaign has gotten off to a really good start. It's ambitious, and look forward to hearing more about it. But that is my report as far as the liaison for the Education Foundation. Next up is Dr. Moranto on the Academic Advisory Committee.
By the way, you have a Juris Doctor, so technically you were Dr. Eichmann. So
Well, I guess, when somebody says Dr. Eichmann, I look to see where my father is, but that's not me.
The only announcement is Academic Advisory Committee will meet October 3rd, so next Thursday. It's a busy week, and I believe one or two of my colleagues on school board, maybe with help from me, will present the strategic plan and get parental, these are a bunch of parents from our 16 schools, get a bunch of parent reaction to it. And I think that's the only thing to announce right now.
All right, thank you, Dr. Moranto. And then now we have Keaton, who's our liaison with the City of Fayetteville.
Yeah, 2 announcements. So we continue to build on our long-standing partnership with the City of Fayetteville. The next joint Board of Education City Council meeting will be the evening of November 13th, likely at 5 p.m., and we'll follow up next month with the exact location. But we're excited to share our strategic plan with our partners at the city. So very exciting news there. And then another announcement, one priority that was listed in our strategic plan is empowering students to be active, engaged members in our community through community partnerships and community service. And it's in the spirit of this goal that we wanted to highlight a youth-led event happening on the Fayetteville Square tomorrow that is a part of the global climate strike. It's from 12 to 4 tomorrow on the Fayetteville Square, and a couple of Fayetteville High School students have played a role in organizing it, Blue Brasher and Amelia Southern, and they'll be speaking at the event. It's a part of the global events that we've seen throughout the last week, spearheaded by Greta Thunberg and other youth activists from all over the world. Just felt the need, with it happening tomorrow and having some youth involvement, just felt the need to highlight the work being done by youth activists all over the country and how it's really making a difference on an issue that's so critical for their future. There's no doubt that students will need to be adaptive, resilient, and engaged as they navigate the uncertainties of the 21st century. So we're excited to see our students engaged in their community through participation and leadership in this event and others, such as the National Day of Prayer, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. March, and the annual overnight vigil in support of our neighbors experiencing homelessness. So just wanted to take a minute to highlight those 2 events coming up.
Great. All right. Well, that concludes the board member liaison reports. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Colbert for a superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Eichmann, and to the board and to the citizens and staff. First, I'd like to bring your attention to this nice flyer that highlights the strategic plan, goals, and objectives. It will be a quick guide for us to use and for you to have. And tomorrow we will be giving a copy to each of the staff members for them to utilize and refer back to it just in case they do not want to have the entire plan out. So this is a quick guide. It's real nice for them to see the goals and the objectives right there firsthand. Okay. The second thing I'd like to just say, on September the 18th, we did have the honor of hosting of area legislators. It went over very well. I would like to give a shout out to the staff and principals at Holt, Holcomb, McNair, and FVA. You all did an excellent job. The legislators were real pleased with what they saw and what they learned, and we utilized students also to share with them. It was very impressive at the different schools, so we really appreciate the students and the staff for stepping up to the plate and letting the legislators know how good of a job we do here in Fayetteville. The second thing is that I'm happy to report, as you know, that the board has charged myself and Dr. Slocum that we need to try to acquire land around the school so that we can continue to look at different options for parking. And so we have purchased the first lot there at 111 Duncan Avenue, and it's parallel to the student parking lot there by the football field. So we can either look at using that land as additional parking as well as an exit, because as you know, we did do a little survey, and one of the big things on the survey to kids was, hey, we need a second exit, try to get out, because everyone is trying to go out that one way onto Bulldog Boulevard. So that's going to help us in the long run. So real proud of that piece, and we are continuing to look at additional land in that same area. Dr. Slogan's been doing a great job talking to the landowners, so hopefully we can bring back an additional report to you that we have acquired additional land. So that's a goal that we'd like to try to utilize so we can continue to work on the parking. I don't want to say a problem, but it's a parking situation that we need to try to take care of. So we're real proud of that piece. And then the last thing I have is just the fact that, as you know, tomorrow is a PD day, where the students has the opportunity to have the day off, and hopefully they will enjoy the bike, blues, and barbecue, and also be able to go and participate in the student-led program. So tomorrow is a big day for us to allow me to talk to the staff about the district state of the district and letting them know where we are and where we are going to go. And so we will be doing that via YouTube. And so we heard the teachers that we did not want to try to take that entire day away from them, because they have been saying they need additional time to plan with their staff members, and we heard that. And so we want to make sure that we recognize that and honor that piece. So we feel real good that they're going to have the majority of that time working together as a group in their individual buildings, and especially with the highlights of the strategic plan. So it should be a great day, and so we appreciate all the support and the great things that the principals have laid out for their staff tomorrow, and they are excited about working with them. So in my report, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Colbert. Okay, we're going to move now over to the consent agenda. That's before you. Don't believe there are any slip sheets today, so there can be a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, or any member can pull an individual item out for consideration. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Nika. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Keaton. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes 7-0. And we're going to move on to our few presentations that we have. And first up is going to be Dr. Weaver back up in front of us for a couple of these, I believe, and curriculum review cycle. It's that time again.
The board-approved curriculum review cycle will continue this year with 2 new programs. The English Language Arts Curriculum Review Task Force started on September 17th and 18th. And this week, on September 24th and 25th, the World Languages teachers started working together. The work of the task force includes a program review, curriculum design, and eventually materials adoption. There will be a difference this year with the materials adoption for the English Language Arts, because we have a lot of mandates coming down from the state. So we've been advised by the state to wait until the official materials lists come out. I haven't spoken with board members about this yet, but the state is adopting new materials, and in the secondary case, they're even developing some new courses for English 1, English 2, which may be English 1 for a semester with a CTE focus or a business focus, or English 1 with a coding focus. There are different subject areas that we have yet to see. They've just advised us that it would be inappropriate use of district funds. They said you can use your district funds this year, but we need to wait. So we will be reviewing curriculum and ELA and writing curriculum, but we'll be adopting materials in world languages as we have with others. English teachers shouldn't be alarmed, though. The money will be there when we're ready and when the state moves forward with further clarification on ELA materials. Among the desired outcomes this year are to conduct a program review. Along with a program review, the teacher leaders that we have established will establish and clarify program goals, develop a guaranteed and viable curriculum, identify existing strengths and weaknesses, which we've already started doing, share best practices, and implement the new curriculum and new program goals. The meeting dates for the ELA task force and the world languages have been shared with the board members, and we look forward to having you come visit if your schedule permits. We have 16 schools, and we have teacher leaders from each school, and basically the teacher leaders in each school share their best resources. We had no idea that this past summer we would lose 10 teachers from our high school in the math department alone. We didn't know that. Several of those teachers helped write the district's curriculum. So when 10 teachers took their place, they had the resources, they had the best practices, and they had hundreds and hundreds of years of experience that we lost when we lost the 10 teachers. So we feel like the process supports new teachers, whether they're a 20-year veteran or someone who just graduated from the university. As we always say, continuous improvement is part of what the teachers will be doing tomorrow with the school level improvement plans. And this is very much what we're doing with our task force. I'm so blessed to work in a school district that has approved a board curriculum review cycle, board approved curriculum review cycle, because this is why we all do our work each day, whether it's me or whether it's the teachers. We do our work for the kids. And when you look into the eyes of the graduates, as I said earlier, we're trying to aim for that 100% graduation rate. We don't want somebody's son or daughter to walk into 9th grade and be unprepared because we had a weak curriculum or a disjointed curriculum, or because one school had better resources than another school. So we're trying to eliminate the opportunities that students have and those opportunity gaps that exist between schools through the work of the board-approved curriculum review cycle. We're very happy with where we are, and this is what we're doing this year. We're focusing on English language arts and some of the data that I shared in the board report to patrons, and we're also focusing on world languages. I think the beautiful part of the world languages is we have 15 world languages teachers in the district, and we have 15 members of the world languages task force. So unlike other groups, 100% of the world language teachers are able to shape the future of their program. And for world languages, it's not just one program, it's Spanish, German, and French. And this concludes the update, just making the board aware of the direction. And I look forward to the spring when we can come and share updates and recommendations from the teacher leaders.
Are there any questions for Dr. Weber?
I got to go and visit on the 25th for a while with Dr. Weber and his team, and I just wanted to share with all of you what fun that was. I really recommend that you make that happen for yourselves if you have time in your schedules. I felt like all the big threads that will go into that were on the table during those 2 days. It's really exciting. And I wanted to ask you too, Dr. Weber, what you feel like you're taking into the ELA and world language curriculum review cycles from your experience with math and library and all that, like what changes you've made to that process based on what you've learned?
One of the biggest benefits is word of mouth. We have teachers excited to come in on day one and ready to get to work because they've talked to math and science and music teachers, and they know that their voice is valued. They know that this is not just jumping through hoops and flip chart paper, and in the end, the district does what they're going to do anyway. They know that the process for math and science moved to an implementation of their ideas and their resources, and so that's been the biggest change. It wasn't that the math teachers had a bad attitude, it was just they were the first group, the fear of the unknown, and so there's not so much unknown anymore. They've seen their colleagues come to board meetings in the spring and proudly say, this is our stamp of approval for the next 5 years for this course. They've also seen, and this has changed for our district, that teacher voice. If I'm not on the committee and I disagree with something, every unit has 5-question survey, a 5-question survey in a Google form that every teacher team is highly encouraged to complete. And if that teacher team tells us something's not working, even if they weren't on the original task force, then their voice is heard. So I feel like every teacher in the district has a voice in their curriculum for their students. I don't know, even though I'm passionate about curriculum, I don't know if it's working unless the teachers say it's working. So from pacing to key vocabulary to key skills and concepts, if something needs to be moved, our math teachers have already met with Lori Huff multiple times and made adjustments to the math curriculum. Just before tonight's meeting, Lisa Neisler, our high school department chair, was asking me about some work that they're doing tomorrow using the math task force recommendations and board-approved curriculum. So I think seeing that the work actually impacts me in my classroom. A lot of times in my experience in other districts, you do curriculum work for 3 days in the summer and then nobody implements it or nobody comes back to refer to it. So it was just motion masquerading as progress. So I think that's the change. And I've made a lot of tweaks to it along the way too. But we do still use some of the original activities, such as a force field analysis where every teacher, if you have 50 teachers in the room, every teacher gets to identify the positive forces, such as we have strong teachers. We already have some curriculum materials, and the resisting forces. So the positive and resisting forces is an activity that allows people to come to the table and they've said, I'm frustrated as a teacher. They can put that as a resisting force, and then throughout the year, either the task force can resolve it or I come to Dr. Colbert and say, we may need money to resolve this. So I think either way, through the task force or through finances, through the district, we've been able to resolve some frustrations. And when teachers can do their job, the morale goes up, and I'd like to think that teacher retention is better when people see that this work is work we did with our own hands.
Go ahead, Keaton. We've already heard my voice.
Well, so I'm going to demonstrate my nerdiness real quick. I was reading a document on the consensus model for decision making, and it makes the point that a lot of people object to a kind of collaborative decision making process because it takes more time to get to the decision. But what really matters is the time it takes to get from like a question being on the table to full and successful implementation, and often, so if you don't have that collaborative process, you can get to the decision quicker, but you might not have the buy-in to speed up the implementation. And that was just a different way of thinking about decision making than I had ever encountered before, but it really rings true, and I think speaks to the support that the teachers and staff have demonstrated for the process.
Did the world language teachers speak in Esperanto? Is that how they communicated? Did anybody else have a
Yes, I know exactly.
question?
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Bob, you have one?
They did have a potluck on day 2, so I do like the world language teachers.
I mean, I am kind of curious how they like divided up the room, if it were like by language or I'll have to inquire further.
A lot of times those departments can be kind of conflictual. I just want to, I guess, proselytize, lobby, whatever, briefly. As a professor for, 35 years now, I've taught at 10 different places everywhere from, a branch campus in southern Mississippi to the Ivy League. Something that does really strike me, and I hope you folks think a lot about, is, in the end, around 70% of our kids are college bound. Probably only half of them will stay there, and that's maybe about right. But for those that do, one of the huge things that I've seen, and it's gotten a little worse over the years, although it was never great, is that so many kids come to college and have really never written anything more than a 4-page paper. And they really freak out when that's the assignment. And so I would say that anything we can do in ELA to get them to write more substantive works, maybe jointly, maybe one thing Block does very well, of course, they're doing things in both government and English at once. But anything that we can fashion along those lines, and I see one of my own kids is dealing with this in college right now, that could get them to do more of that in junior high, high school, maybe even below that, would be just incredibly useful in terms of preparing them for college and for life. I mean, almost any white-collar line of work, you're going to have to write things. And if you write things in a clearer way, it's a lot better for you and for those around you. So I would just really push that. The second thing that I maybe would push a little bit, and I think this was, I love President Obama, I loved Arnie Duncan, I even kind of liked Common Core briefly, but I think the way Common Core was interpreted, and we're still maybe dealing with a little bit of that, is that we see English as mostly vocational, and so we have people read little snippets of something, even when it's a work of fiction, instead of just reading a book. I mean, literally, I remember it took 9 weeks, week by week, to read little bits of To Kill a Mockingbird, which is really not the right way to do it, I think, to develop an appreciation for reading. And I think really that helps with social emotional learning too, when you get lost in stories and when you see very different perspectives from yours, which is something that fiction is so useful at doing. We actually shifted some of our ELA curriculum to things like Stephen Covey. I love Stephen Covey, he's great. Not sure that was really the right place to do it. And again, a lot of that came from a Common Core consultant we had years back. I don't blame people in Washington, but I'm not sure it was all wise. So anything we can do, I would say, to sort of build that love of reading and to do this realistically would be good. And I have a lot of faith in our teachers that they will fashion that. But that would just sort of be my plea as a parent and as somebody who, down the road is going to see some of these kids in college.
Ms. Hayward behind me and Dr. Hudson are a big part of this work, and they're a big part of everything we do in the Office of Teaching and Learning, but they've helped me plan and they've helped me implement the task force work. Ms. Hayward for more than just this year, and Dr. Hudson's recently helped. Her background as a literacy coach and ELA teacher is especially helpful. And then we've also partnered with a professor for the first time in the task force work at the University of Arkansas. His name's Dr. Chris Gearing. He's worked with the National Writing Project. He's taught a lot of our, I think about 15 of the task force members had him for a professor. And he is really helping co-facilitate some of the activities and pushing our thinking. So it's nice to be in a university town, but it's even better that we have made that connection. And one of the teachers wrote that for several years she always wondered why we didn't have a partnership with U of A professors on curriculum work. So in the ELA task force, I think that's going to improve. I know that's going to improve our product.
I think that sounds great. I think Chris is the right guy to do it too.
Anybody else? Dr. Weber, thank you for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Would you like me to introduce the next
That
topic?
would be great. I was actually going to ask if you wouldn't mind doing that, taking us through.
Mickey McFetridge is our Director of Federal Programs. Mr. McFetridge, if you could come forward at this time. And he is going to provide an update on School Level Improvement Plan this year, officially known in Arkansas as SLIP. Thank you.
Good evening. This last year, we took a different approach to our SLIP plan. It's formerly known as ACCIP. The state is allowing districts to have more of a local control type approach to the SLIP plan. And so instead of just filling out a form once a year that kind of checks off all of these boxes, the team over at the Office of Teaching and Learning and work with a lot of principals, we decided to take the strategic plan that you are all developing and blend that in with our school level improvement plans. So the idea behind it is now we have the district strategic plan, we have our state scores, and we have this SLIP plan in the middle that's kind of the glue between all of those things together. And so if you all remember back in July, we had asked you all to vote and approve on that. And so we did that, and we posted it, we turned it into the state and posted it on our website. And we could at this point just check that off and say, okay, we're done until the spring, and we'll vote on it again next summer. But after working with Dr. Weber and the team, we discussed the next steps in utilizing tomorrow's Professional Development Day as a day for all teachers to go back after looking at the strategic plan and doing a deeper dive into the strategic plan, looking at the newly released state test scores, and then looking back at that SLIP plan to say, okay, we developed this plan back in April and May. It's now September, almost October. What can we do to make some tweaks to it, make some changes? We're not asking them to reinvent the plan, but are there any pieces that need to change now that we have more data available? And so tomorrow, we're giving the opportunity for the principals to go over their plans again with their teachers, and then we're asking them to gather feedback. And so the teachers can either do this in a PLC, or they can do this on their own, where they're going to fill out a form and give feedback saying, we think goal 2 may need to be tweaked this way, or goal 3, maybe this little change needs to happen. And then what we will do is in October, the principals and their SLIP chairs will meet with me, and we'll make any revisions that we need to see fit. And then we'll ask you all again in December if there's any changes made to those plans to approve those. So basically, that's my section here is short and sweet, but we wanted to give you that update to let you know the steps forward. We didn't want to just approach that plan as it's the idea the state really is impressing on us too. Let's make this a living, breathing document and really make sure that it's meeting the needs of students as the year goes on. So that's the plan, and that's a lot of the plan for what tomorrow's use will be with our teachers.
Thank you. I think a nice thing from what you mentioned in June and July when we saw them is we were recognizing elements in there that we had heard that teachers and people in your office had been presenting to us over those many days, and that was kind of nice to be able to see those elements and start to recognize it as you hear it. I can't say that I've had the improvement plans before in the past remain in my memory as much as this one did, just because it's the simple recognition of the subject matter that we're talking about. Seems like we have some common language that we're starting to talk about, which is nice.
And what I think I'm most excited about is the fact that the state can look at our plan and go, oh, Fayetteville's, they're really connecting it to, they're not just checking off boxes to, do these compliance pieces, but we really wanted this to be an idea that it seems to come from one place, not just, oh, we got to do this for federal programs, we've got to do this for RTI, we've got to do this to make the board happy, but it's this one central document that's got all of those pieces in there. So
I really appreciate you seeing not you personally, although you personally too, but like the district seeing those various demands as opportunities to synthesize that work. I think it's really exciting. Well, as I look at the guiding questions for each school, I feel like questions 3 and 4, they're good questions. All 4 questions are good questions. I think questions 3 and 4, and maybe the second half of question 2 there, are like genuinely challenging, and I think can be really hard for staff to look at, because all of the people who we employ in our schools want the best for kids and come to school every day trying to do their best. Right. And so it's really hard to look at groups that persistently don't make growth and to say, like, what are we doing wrong? Yeah. And I wonder if you or maybe Michelle or Christina can speak to how we're preparing building leaders for that conversation, because that's a heavy lift for them with their staff.
And so once again, those questions aren't up there, but 3 and 4 was, who's not success.
Yeah, I can read them. Question 3 is, which subgroups of students are not making growth? Question 4 is, who is not achieving? What are we going to do about it?
You don't want to speak to any of that, or do you want me to? As far as support to that, sorry, we are a team. And it's just, they may not come up with that answer tomorrow. And sometimes that answer is, it's going to take more work. It's going to take more, maybe they do need to call Dr. Dugan and say, okay, how do we need to look at this data differently? What exactly isn't successful besides just the ACT Aspire scores? Where are they falling in these other places? And so it becomes a tender subject because, teaching is we're all very passionate about our jobs, and so if we feel like someone's saying, oh, you're not doing this part of your job right, it is our office's responsibility to say, no, you still are. We've just got to figure out maybe a different approach we need to take to that.
And it does follow along with data, and our PLCs, our grade level teams are working on that daily. And those questions for the PLC is, who's not learning, why, what are we doing about it, and then what are we doing for those students who have already achieved. So they are having these daily conversations. While we don't always have the answers, we're always searching for more. So asking for more resources, asking for, as Mickey said, bring in Dr. Dugan, ask Dr. Hudson or I to come in to be another listening ear to see maybe we have a resource that they haven't thought of. So the bottom line is, we're not going to give up.
And I trust that we definitely won't give up. That would be a dark day for our district. I think part of the reason I ask is that when we break down those demographics, we're looking at race and we're looking at poverty. And leading conversations about race and poverty is really hard. And I appreciate that these are conversations that we're having all the time in our schools, but there's no question that some of us struggle with, all of us struggle with those conversations, and we all struggle with them in different ways. And our school staffs are like tight, small groups. They're very personal relationships. It's hard to challenge people on those issues. It's hard to challenge ourselves on them. I mean, I just feel like they're really tough. And so you don't even have to give me an answer tonight. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but I just, I hope that we're looking for creative ways to really support building leaders, because I think that being the facilitator of that conversation is really hard. And they have many other hard jobs, obviously. That's just one piece of what they're trying to do. So
And really, a big piece of what we're asking tomorrow is to say, look at this plan, look at these sub-pops, look at these things. Is our plan really addressing the real issue there? Or, because it is easy to say, oh, we've grown this much in this area, let's keep doing this here. And we just really want to make sure, oh, our plan, you know, we did this back in April, and all of a sudden this sub-pop is showing something that maybe we need to start addressing in our plan.
I think too, go ahead. Leading with questions, Dr. Weber tells us to do this all the time. So having those fierce conversations, leading with questions, and assuming positive intent is very important, but we're not negating the data. The data speaks. So whatever it says, we have to respond to it.
I also think that the way that Dr. Dugan is leading data conversations is really smart. We started with our entire DLT team. We dedicated 3 hours to looking at data from kind of a macro level, and then principals had their individual data, and she's going into buildings with me and Michelle, and we're meeting with principals individually to look at their schools and make sure that they have a really keen grasp on their individual schools' data. And so we're really kind of looking at the district as a whole, and then we're drilling down to each individual building.
Thank you all. I really
mean,
appreciate it.
if I can just throw some things in there, I spent a lot of 2010 to 2012 visiting high poverty, high achievement schools in, where was it, Phoenix, Houston, and actually Rogers had a bunch of them, and Springdale had a couple. And I think there's actually a pretty well-established playbook of things that people can do, and they're kind of out of the routine. And one is knowing that a lot of families, mine was one of them, actually had really bad experiences in school, so it's kind of not real high in their comfort zone. And a lot of times, you know, early in the year, if you do a home visit, make it really positive, or visit in a neutral place sometimes, get to know the family, they get to know you, that can be really helpful. Looping, when you can do it, can be really helpful. I mean, a lot of kids have some chaos in their life. If they have the same teacher for 2 years, that can often be quite helpful. A lot of districts I've seen that have succeeded at that, both districts and charter schools, also literally will carve out time in the schedule, usually about twice a year, where they will literally go over the plan for every kid in the building and make it relatively easy to individualize. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I've got a kid not quite proficient in third grade reading, I can go to the resource room, literally pull out a whole shelf of stuff that says, oh, here are appropriate reading things and assignments for that kid. Our support staff make it easy for teachers to individualize, because if it's not easy, they're probably not going to do it, at least not for a while. So I think there's actually a kind of a bundle of things out there. I'm really sick of that. We have MAPS testing again. It gives us immediate data 3 times a year on every kid, nationally normed. So if you're getting data 6 months later, I mean, honestly, who cares, right? You can't really, neither the kid or you can do anything reacting to it. So I think there's actually a sort of a bundle of things that over time, I mean, schools that I've seen have succeeded over time have adopted a lot of these. And so I would just kind of leave that out there. I think this is something that if we focus on it for a while, we can have a lot of success. I mean, we're not that we're bad. We're really not bad. But I think we could do better than how we're doing. And I think the board is communicating that that's something we really want to see. I mean, I always tell people, in particular elementary school, you've got one kid. You've got a kid usually has one teacher. There can be a relationship there that's way, way harder in even middle school, where you've got 5 or 6 teachers. Every teacher has a fifth of a kid. You've got over 100 kids. It's way, way harder to make progress there than it is elementary. So I would just kind of put that out there. And I think these are usually what we do. We'll bring in some training or something, and then we may or may not implement it later. I think there's a lot of structural things we could do that I've seen places do. So I would just kind of put that out there.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mickey. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next up, Dr. Weber, you want to introduce this one as well with Carm Proc on AP?
Tonight, we have an update on pre-AP and advanced placement in Fayetteville Public Schools. And with us tonight, we have our pre-AP Department Chair, Cincy Mathis, our AP Department Chair, Katie Stewart, our Director of Gifted and Talented Education and Advanced Placement Curriculum, Carm Prock, and unable to be with us tonight is our Assistant Principal for pre-AP and Advanced Placement, Mike Kaminsky. His wife recently had a baby, so he's at home with wife and family. So at this time, our first, these will each be brief updates, but our first update will be Cincy Mathis, pre-AP Department Chair. Ms. Mathis?
Hello. So just a couple of things about pre-AP. A couple of years ago, College Board decided that they wanted to kind of maybe take some ownership back of their pre-AP program. For years, teachers went to training, but then came back into their classrooms and kind of did their own thing. Different than the AP programs that, they have, there's some accountability along with the test. They have to turn in a syllabus and, so College Board decided they wanted to kind of take some of that ownership back of pre-AP, and so they started a pre-AP program. And in 2018, 2019, Fayetteville High was chosen one of the 2 schools in the state of Arkansas to be in the pilot program. We were one of 100 schools in the nation to be involved in the pilot program. And we offered pre-AP English 9, pre-AP Art, pre-AP Algebra 1, pre-AP Biology, and pre-AP Theater to our 9th graders under that umbrella that College Board provided. All the teachers were trained. The teachers received some materials from College Board, and we implemented it last year. We were in the, we kind of they call it Cohort 1. So we're in the kind of year 1 of the rollout. We, knowing our school district and knowing some of our community, we opted to not only have the pre-AP pathway for these 9th graders, we also had an honors pathway. So, for example, in English, every class is called pre-AP, but we have both pre-AP and we also have some honors still in the classrooms. The pre-AP stuff is the same. It's the same curriculum in both classrooms, but the honors pathway, we do things just a little bit differently, a little bit faster. We go a little bit deeper, but that's in English, and we'll be in 2020, 21, it will be in the 10th grade English as an option. With this program, we have materials provided to us, given to us. The students get workbooks. They're not workbooks like they have to work in them. They just are like texts. So they, College Board has asked us to use texts that, they feel kind of support their the program, and so the kids get those materials. Teachers get lessons, and we use some of their lessons, and then we build on their lessons or build on those skills when we create our own part of so there's like 4 units, and we do theirs for part of the unit, and then we do our stuff for the rest of the unit. I feel like y'all have some questions, and if you let me get through this, then I'll answer your questions. I just felt like I saw some looks up there. Anyway,
We just care about what you're saying.
Do what?
We just care about what you're saying.
With the materials, the lessons, we also have access to a pre-AP platform, an online platform. Teachers have access to an online community, so teachers from around the country that are doing this, as well as College Board people to answer questions, to help us. Students have access to an online platform as well. We use that online platform for assessments that College Board provides us. They're, they fit really nicely with the skills. They fit really nicely as kind of beginnings to those AP classes. So they take multiple choice assessments during the units provided by College Board, and then they also do a performance task assessments assessment as well, and that's more of a writing component. And again, kind of in talking with AP teachers, like this is the kind of prep that they would definitely, that they want for these kids to kind of feed into their AP classes. The pre-AP platform this year, I'm sure that maybe Ms. Stewart or Ms. Prock will address this. AP has the AP part of College Board has taken on that platform component as well, and so now those AP kids have that online platform as well that they're using. There are 4 big kind of shared principles that all of the pre-AP classes focus on. So when we receive training, that was kind of our focus. So kids that are in multiple classes, like if you have a kid in pre-AP English and pre-AP Algebra, then they're hearing these same principles. If they're in an art class, they're hearing the same stuff. And the 4 big ones for from College Board are academic conversations that we're, getting kids to have those real, important conversations and discussions, evidence-based writing, close observation and analysis, and then lastly, higher order questioning. So all of those, those are kind of like our big key shared principles, but key concepts, whereas all those, some of our more minute detail or more focused skills are kind of fit under that. Next year, the College Board is rolling out, like I said, for 2021, they'll be rolling out 3 additional 10th grade classes, a pre-AP chemistry option, a pre-AP English 10, and then a pre-AP geometry option. So that's my spiel now. What questions do you have? I covered everything. Great. Good night.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Cynthia? That was a very comprehensive review. No, I'm thanking you. Certainly said a number of things that I've taken in for the first time, so that's really good to hear. Anybody have any questions for Cynthia?
By the scorecard, I go 5 right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, you get a 5.
I just jump in. It's a really neat part of our system, I think, and so I'm going to push a little bit. My sense is we don't do that much to publicize it. So I find it hard when I look on the website, no brochure or anything for the last few years, I think. Are there things that we can do to put this out there more? Because I think it is something that the district should be proud of.
I agree, and that was, so we are meeting monthly with Dr. Hudson, a kind of a pre-AP, AP, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's stuff for later. Kind of a group of us, so me and then Katie and Carmen, Mike Kaminsky, and Dr. Hudson, and kind of talking about that. That was one thing that kind of came up in this last, in our last conversation was, how do we kind of get this out? We were talking about. Katie and I were talking about those glossy handouts that everybody's getting tomorrow, and that we needed something to kind of get some of this information or get some of this highlight this for for our community, for our parents. So we're working on it. I don't have an answer right now. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I'll also just say AP is definitely not for everybody. I will say for me, I was bored out of my mind in most of my classes. And then luckily, I had a very good journalism teacher who told me I had to take AP English, and it was amazing. It was just great. So I mean, personally, it was the only AP course I took. Actually, my high school didn't have a whole lot of them, but for the right kid, this can be a really amazing thing.
Well, I think that's why pre-AP and the way that College Board is wanting us to do it, and the way that Fayetteville Public Schools has opted to do it is great, because we're giving, every ninth grader at Fayetteville High is taking a pre-AP English class. Whether or not they're in all of the other ones, they may be, they may not be, but they're all in a pre-AP English class. And so, at least, that's giving them, perhaps motivation, or perhaps like, hey, this might be something I could do, as I got into 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, take an AP class that maybe before I didn't think that I was ready for. So,
It's the only thing I throw in. It is a different kind of animal, and it's not better or worse. It's just different. But I see some staff who are, amazing at doing this. I think in general we have an amazing group of AP teachers. Some folks aren't very good at it, and I think we have to be realistic about that and be real careful. We've got people in the right positions.
in the right place. Yes,
Yeah,
I agree,
yeah.
for sure.
Thank you, Cincy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can see the statistics on our slide. So you know that 1,625 AP exams is quite a production. Michael Kaminsky does a fabulous job of orchestrating this 2-week period in May of finding places for us to administer all of the exams. We use the town center. We will have to use a couple of other places this year for large groups of students to take these exams. But as you can see, we're really pleased to announce that of our students who are taking the exams, we have those students who scored 3s, 4s, and 5s, we have 69.5% this year. So we're very pleased with that. In the next slide, it gives a little bit of history. Oh, there we go. Okay, the next slide gives a little bit of history throughout the last 5 years of what that has looked like, how many students have taken exams, the number of exams, and our students with 3+. 3+ is what they need to be able to have credit at most colleges in the state. And there's some new legislation on that just recently. So we do have 69.5 this year. We did have a little bit higher last year at 71.7, but you can see historically in the last 5 years we have stayed very, very high. As you compare this with Arkansas's average, or Arkansas students who have scored 3s, 4s, and 5s, the Arkansas average is at about 36%, so we are well above that average. And the global number for globally is at 61%. So we're well above the global average as well. Katie has some things that she's going to share about things that are happening at the high school with AP.
Okay. So one of the recognitions that students get is the AP Scholar Program. The College Board awards these every year. And you can see that last year we had 250 students who qualified as AP Scholars. And you can also see the various distinctions beneath that. Basically, each one is determined by, like AP Scholar, I think they have to get an average of a score of 3 on 3 different exams. And then basically as the distinctions go up, the requirements become a little bit more. We always have, or not always, but we generally have 1 or 2 students who will get the National AP Scholar Award, and that's pretty impressive considering to be a National AP Scholar, students have to have an average of at least 4 on all AP exams taken and scores of 4 or higher on 8 or more of these exams. And sometimes we have students who have already earned that distinction by the time they begin their senior year, so they've actually only had the opportunity to take AP classes in the 9th, 10th, and 11th grades. And then the AP International Diploma basically requires students to take a certain number of exams in all areas. So it wouldn't be like a student who says, oh, I'm only interested in AP Humanities. To get that AP International Diploma, you have to take the courses in a lot of different subject areas and do well in those courses. So that's one recognition. We also have at the high school level, we do an AP Scholar Luncheon every spring. We would love for you to all come. We usually try to invite the school board and the superintendent. And that's an opportunity for students to be recognized for the hard work they've done in high school, and we have door prizes and things like that. But for most students, the AP Scholar recognition, that's exciting, but for most students, what they really care about is the fact that they are getting college credit, many of them, and they are also for free because the state of Arkansas pays for AP exams, which is we're really fortunate to be in a state that does that. They're excited about that. They're also excited about the way that AP prepares them for college, the way that AP allows them to look very competitive in the college admissions process. So we have students who will go to the university, for instance, and they might start as sophomores based on the amount of college credit they've been able to earn through AP. And for a student who has done a lot of AP courses, that can provide a lot of flexibility. So it can allow them to double major, it can allow them to graduate early, it can allow them to study abroad, a lot of opportunities they might not have time for otherwise. But I do want to make the point that I think that Whereas we do have a lot of students who, you know, they take every AP, the joke I always make is that we have students who, if we offered AP lunch, they would take AP lunch. And we have students who would take every AP course available to them. But we also want to start encouraging a mindset that it's not, I'm an AP student or I'm not an AP student. We want students to dip their toe into AP. For instance, last year, I had a student who would have been from an underrepresented population. No one had probably ever recommended him for an AP course. I had a relationship with him because he was in my advisory. He took my course and he worked hard. He improved his writing skills. And at the end of the year, because he was very interested in art, his advisor talked him into being in AP studio art. So he'll graduate high school taking those 2 courses and will be immeasurably more prepared for college level work because he's done that. And so we actually, Dr. Weber asked me to share some of our department goals with you tonight. And I think that our ongoing goal, and has been our goal for a while, and Dr. Colbert has mentioned this before, is increasing the diversity of our AP program. So obviously our goal would be that our AP classrooms would look like our hallways, and that is something that we have work to do on. And so we've been working on this, and people have been interested in this issue for a while, but we do have a couple of exciting developments as far as tools and supports that I think will help us get closer to our goal. One is we have a new partnership with Equal Opportunity Schools, who is going to work with the high school to identify students who are from some of those underrepresented groups, is going to help us target those students, encourage those students to they've helped us already to set goals for how many students we're trying to place into these classes, things like that. I'm really excited about that work. They're going to also provide training for our teachers in equity, which I think what Megan said earlier about how those are difficult conversations, and they're not always conversations that people want to have. And I think that that's really exciting to have that training and have that support. So we're very excited about that. The other additional thing that we have implemented this year is we have a new course called AP Ambassadors, and we actually have we have some students from our AP Ambassadors course. So that, guys, they've been here for a while. So let's give them a round of applause. And then their teachers behind them, Cameron Simpkins. And this is a new course for us. We have wanted to have this course for a while, but this is the first year that we've been able to offer it. We have 12 students in it this year, and Ms. Simpkins says that they are fired up about equity, which is what we want to hear. And the students are really working with Ms. Simpkins to be ambassadors for our program. They met with Ms. Kitchen. Is it Kitchen or Kitchens? Kitchen, okay. Okay, thank you. I could have answered that question before I stood at the microphone, but Miss Kitchen from Ramey and one of the counselors from Ramey to talk about how this course could potentially help prepare students at Ramey to be ready for advanced level coursework. And I know that once they have established that partnership, they're going to do the same thing at Woodland Junior High School. They have been to our ESL parent night. They helped set up activities. They are doing some tutoring. They're going to work with us on doing some promotional materials. So these kids, they're fancy graphics. I'm sure they'll come up with something much more visually appealing than I would. So they're really working with us and partnering with us in some of this equity work, and we're just really excited to have their contribution in that. I think that they have a better understanding most of the time of what some of the barriers are that are keeping students out of these classes when we definitely don't want that to be the case. So thank you.
I mean, these conversations are great, but do we have data where we can say, yeah, this kid should be able to make this, and make sure that we are equitably identifying kids?
Right. So part of the EOS process, and I mean, I just know what I learned in the presentation last week, so if anyone wants to jump in, they can, but there is going to be, yes, go ahead. I was going to do my best.
Dr. Colbert took us to Bentonville schools this week, and Dr. Dostal, Dr. Hudson joined us, and we met with 2 high school principals, an assistant principal, and Dr. Debbie Jones, Bentonville Schools superintendent. And so the 2 superintendents collaborated to see what Equal Opportunity Schools had done, because they're 2 years into the program and they're in year 3 now, I believe. And so what you get in Dr. Jones' terms is a baseball card. On the old-fashioned Topps baseball card, on the back of it you have statistics. So we will start with a student survey that will begin shortly, and all of our students will be surveyed. We'll find out what their interests are. Maybe they're interested in math, English. We'll also find out who someone in the school is, like a teacher who has told them, I believe in you, I think you could take these classes. And Bentonville's been able to partner mentors with mentees. They've also been able to help identify those students. One thing that they told us they learned the hard way the first year was they'd have a meeting with a student in the counselor's office, and they'd say, you're a perfect candidate, go downstairs and register for this class. The kid would go back to lunch or go down the hallway. They'd never go register. So they got smarter about it, and they had the conversation with maybe the assistant principal, the mentor, and the guidance counselor all in the same room, and a laptop. And once a student said, I think I'll do that, they said, you're signed up. And that's right there. So a one-stop shop. But we will have more data than we've ever had on students. And Dr. Colbert and I left that meeting feeling so encouraged. This is something that when he met, when they used to be called the Arkansas Department of Education, this summer he came back from a meeting with superintendents, and he said, Dr. Weber, fill out this application. It's application only. We're going to try to put our name into this and try. And we got in that. I believe that Jonesboro High School, Bentonville, and one other high school are in Arkansas right now, but we recently met with Equal Opportunity Schools, and they spoke with all faculty members at Fayetteville High, so that's all we really know. But Dr. Colbert, did you want to add on what we learned from Bentonville?
Yes, when you said data, one of the neat things that's going to happen, you know, sometimes we think we need to get all the information from adults. We're going to survey the students so that we can hear from the students. And then one of the big things from that information, the students say, hey, I only have one person that who looks up to me in high school, who takes care of me. And then they identify that person. So of course we're going to say, look, Miss Jones, this kid has identified you as someone that they trust, someone that they believe in. So it's a real, we're kind of excited about the program that we can get that data from them, as well as we're going to survey the teachers also, because we need to put all of that information together so we can create what he was saying, that baseball card is going to list the interests, and also it's going to tell us, hey, I would like to be in that class, but no one has ever asked me. Or I would like to be in that class, but no one has encouraged me. So it's going to get some good information from those surveys as we continue to look at this. So we're kind of excited about the program. So I'm glad to hear that the teachers there have heard the representative from COS, and so therefore that we can move forward and adopt this program in order to try to make sure that we increase the number of unrepresented students in the AP classes. So.
I'm going to guess a lot of students, I know I was one, have never heard of AP.
Right, exactly, yes.
And
And we're going to get some of that. And they shared that with us as one of the students mentioned that piece, yes.
And we're not just identifying 10 students and saying, hey, we need 10 more kids to make this class meet. Kids had a 3.5, a 4.2, and they had just kind of fallen through the system in Bentonville, and now they have the data. So it's not just I like math, it's also they have this test score, they have this 8th grade score, and they have a really high GPA. So it's a good match, because if you put students in there who are going to struggle, that's more frustration for the student and the family. So it's not necessarily casting the net to any kid who wants to be in the program, but there are also some, as you know, some 9th and 10th grade AP classes, which are kind of like small wins. If we get the right students in those entry-level classes and they have success, they'll probably say, I'll take another class next year. I'll take 2 more next year because I was successful in 10th grade. I'll turn it back to you.
Can we do more to make more AP classes available at 9th grade? Right now, it's very few, I think.
That is something that with Ms. Proc's leadership we can look at. We're always looking at courses and what we offer, and I think EOS will help us with those conversations. So that's a great question.
Can we hear from the students? I feel like they have sat through our whole meeting with our loud.
Before you guys leave, I wanted to ask, well, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can bring them back.
We can keep them. Let them talk first, then you all stay, if you don't mind. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here are the students from our class. Was there anything in particular?
Yes, I do have anything in particular. Anything you want to share with us is great, but I would also love to know, we talked earlier in the meeting, you probably heard us, about how we don't get in high school, we don't build K-8, right? That like it's not a high school lift on this stuff. So I don't know what you guys have talked about in class that might help us to build a program beyond GT that allows students to develop identities as like real students between K-8.
Okay.
I know you're just at the beginning of your course. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, one of the things we talked about today with the counselors and last time with the Ramey assistant principal was within our, since we're just starting as students, we could go travel to Ramey first, as they mentioned earlier, to talk to maybe some of the AVID classes or maybe some small groups. We're still working out the details, but telling them about our experiences in AP and how much we've benefited from that, and also talking like realistically how we study for AP classes. Like one of the things that came up was maybe like for AP Human, if they're signing up for 9th grade, we could teach them a new vocab word or something and then show them a question that might be on the AP exam. And just something to show that there is no such thing as what makes someone an AP student or maybe not an AP student, but to bridge that gap and just encourage people to excel in academics and hopefully pursue AP.
Do you want to say that one thing?
About GT, can you tell them something Addie they want to hear? Okay, so I actually wanted to answer your question about why students, like diverse students, don't want to take AP classes. And I asked some of my friends today what they thought about it and why they didn't take those classes, and they said that they didn't feel accepted. Because when you walk into a room, you want to like gravitate towards the people who you feel most comfortable with. So like for me, I'm Asian. Like if I see like a group of white people and a group of Asian people, I'm more likely to gravitate towards the Asian people because that's where I feel safe. And I think that's why like most people don't take AP classes, because they don't like see anybody who's like them, and they just want to see people
that are similar to
Yeah.
them. And I think that it's very, it's semi like discouraging to be like surrounded by people that look nothing like you. And like for a student that perhaps is interested in advancing their academics and wants to be in a pre-AP class or an AP class, it's kind of like it's discouraging to go into an environment that's very new and you feel alienated all by yourself. And I think that one of the goals I know from our class is that we're trying to increase the amount of diverse students that want to take those AP and pre-AP classes and make them feel comfortable and let them know that they can, because a lot of times, and I know in our class we've discussed that sometimes it's not on purpose, but the teachers can come across very discouraging to regular classes and to the types of students that go into regular classes. And so I think that this stigma about what's the AP student and what's the regular student has to stop, and we need a more diverse group of people and students and peers within our classrooms, because I can definitely say that within my AP classes, I'm usually one of the only people of color, and I'm mixed, you know?
Yeah.
And in terms of like my classes from previous years, sometimes I'm one of 3 girls for my AP Computer Science A class. Like the diversity in the groups and the different backgrounds of people is just not wide enough of a range. And so I don't think people will gravitate towards it because it's intimidating.
Let me ask a quick question. Do you remember about how old you were when you first noticed that stigma?
In terms of the pre-AP, or
Like, was it the stigma of, you know, that smart kids look a certain way, and that you have to, do you know what I'm saying? What you guys
Yes.
are referencing, was it at the high school when you were thinking about AP classes, or was it much
it's
earlier than
elementary
that?
school.
Yeah.
It's
For-
elementary school.
For me, it was elementary school, because all of these GT kids, they're white kids, like kids who like came from rich families, you know? And like I was saying in my class, I shouldn't say that.
You can say it. You can say it.
Abolish GT.
Yeah, I would like to abolish GT because it like,
like high school college prep classes, you're like allowing them to like grow even more, but there's these students, like these public school students, who don't get to grow as much because they don't have that sort of attention. And I feel like that's what GT is sort of like.
I just wanted to add on to this. As a GT student, I think this is true. I probably don't share the abolish GT standpoint. I will put that out of the way. But I think it does start in the elementary school, and I think it gets it becomes worse once people get sorted into pre-AP and regular classes starting around 8th grade. I think
8th grade is when you go to pre-AP, and 7th grade there's advanced maths. Advanced maths is kind of, I don't know, there's an intermixing, at least there was at Holt. But pre-AP in the 8th grade was not the same as 7th grade math, and all the way from my elementary experience, I remember who the GT kids were. The GT kids were somewhat entitled, arrogant, and were not very kind, and they kind of all matched this one role of a student. And these kids from like kindergarten or 1st grade, they're set up as this perfect student. They're set up as to be, this is a smart kid. What about all those other kids that didn't make it? Those kids are just as intelligent. They just have a different thinking process. And I have so many friends and family that are very intelligent people, but like, they didn't pass a test. And if it wasn't for their families and their support systems, if their teachers don't push them, if the schools don't push them, they have to rely on those support systems and families, which not all have. But unless they have that, they're not going to be pushed to excel and to shoot for greater and higher things in their academic career. So it's like from such a young age, it's like you're deciding who's supposed to be the smart kids. And I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I do think that GT is a wonderful experience for kids to adventure and experience different types of creative learning, and I think that it's great because some kids learn better that way. Wonderful. I think that's great. But I think that it's too exclusive, and I think it starts at such a young age that it causes a stigma. And if you weren't in GT, you weren't smart.
This speaks to one of my biggest concerns, and I've been in this district for a long time, or I've had kids in this district, is that unfortunately we have, as a district, we have somehow overlapped GT and AP, and I mean, actually, they're two completely different programs that should be, in my opinion, treated differently. The students that enroll and are enrolled in those two different programs should be coming from completely different spaces. But I think you're just confirming what I've heard from so many students and I've seen personally, is that kids have this idea that AP is for GT type kids. And that is not at all the case, but I think part of it is the optics that we've set up as a district, just the way we've gone about things. So, I mean, the things you guys have shared has been so helpful. I think we're taking steps.
I was about to say, one of
huge
the things
steps
that your teachers and administrators have done is come to us and say, this is a problem. We have incorporated that into a strategic plan. The things that you're hearing about tonight and that you're talking about tonight are things that are very important to us that we've adopted in that plan. It's very great to see today over the 3 presentations. I got to compliment you all, the students and the staff members, on not just embracing it, but being way ahead of almost to where we are. It's been a very enlightening set of presentations, and really appreciate. But this is a very important thing that we've identified and that we're working on. So it's been great to hear that feedback from you all.
And I find, I mean, perhaps this is naive of me, but I hear a lot as a student, you all talking about in the AP classes, you're worried about scores and how you want to broaden the range of diversity, and that's great, that's wonderful, and that's what we need. That's whenever there's a wider range of types of people and classes and backgrounds and where they come from, that's more encouraging for more people to follow. You know, I think that's wonderful. But I also don't necessarily, and like I said, it's naive on my part as a kid, but I think that broadening the diversity within a classroom environment shouldn't originate or be completely oriented around scores and the economic aspect of it. I think that it should be more so based on the fact that we need more diverse people in our classes because they deserve to have the same opportunities and experiences as everybody else.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between serving students and serving like presentation slides. And I think that's a really important distinction for us to make as a district and to know where we stand on that. I think one of the things that I hear you saying too is that as valuable as it is to separate GT and AP, in our minds as the board, in kind of an educational deal, that if you're a student sitting in a classroom, those things don't, or in a school, those things don't get separated, right? If one program is designed for like smart kids, and then another program is designed for smart kids, those things are gonna get linked in students' own identity formation, right? When you're like understanding who you are as a person and are being raised by our schools. If certain kids get pulled, and that's the only way that you're recognized as bright, and it's the only way that you get an opportunity to have the kind of creative experiences that you're talking about having, there's no way that you're not gonna take some impressions of yourself away from that process. So we really appreciate your sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I do want to add one thing, which is praise for so many teachers that people talk about the test scores, but a lot of that comes from my kids spent a lot of time with individual teachers, to some degree preparing for tests, but a lot of it was just asking questions about material. It was really learning and having the ability to do that through A&E or through whatever. In a school day is just so valuable to be able to go to teachers with things like that.
And one thing I did want to say, this came out of the EOS presentation, is that they found that whenever they increased the diverse numbers in their classes, and I'm not saying this because I think we should be so tied to the scores, I totally agree, but they did not see a statistically significant drop in scores. And so I think sometimes it's our own low expectations of what it means to open up these classes to more learners. We're not talking about opening these, we want more diversity in these classes, but we also think that these kids who aren't taking these classes can achieve.
Great.
Just a couple other and I think you guys have said it, but this idea of diversifying our AP classes and our GT enrollment as well is a huge priority for the board. So I just want to make sure that was clarified, that we're very supportive of that. I mean, of course, we're not the experts in how to get from point A from A to Z, and so we have entrusted you guys with that process, but we are very supportive of diversifying our students and what students are enrolled in, all of those different things. But I would just like on a much smaller scale, I would like to consider how we can just visually, even on our website, the only place to access AP information is under a GT link. So even there, well, I mean, it's under the data dashboard, but like if I were to just look for, all I want to know about is AP, pre-AP, there's no link up there.
If you go to Fayetteville High School, and there's a listing, Explore, I think that's the word, and there's a listing of everything that you can click on or that you can go to, all of the different links. There are pre-AP and AP links there that take you to some wonderful pieces that Michael Kaminsky has put together there on the website. But you can also get there from the Gifted and Talented program. But if you'll go to Fayetteville High School, drop down, I think it's in the second column toward the bottom. Do you see pre-AP?
I didn't, it logged me out, so I'm logging back in, but
it is
I was
there.
looking for it earlier, I didn't see it, so I'll,
and
I just feel like it should be on the front page since we have pre-AP classes that are not at the high school. I don't understand why we'd have to go into a particular school to find that. So that's just a suggestion. Obviously, this is just details, but they're much bigger priorities. But I just think even anything we can look at to make these things easier to find for kids who aren't already enrolled, obviously you're having that conversation, but that's just one
I
suggestion.
would just kind of add in, the more progress we make closing achievement gaps in elementary school, the easier it will be to diversify AP classes. I think President Obama said that very well. It's kind of the civil rights challenge at the time. And so I would just really push that.
Well, I just want to say a quick thank you to both the students for sharing and for these last few presentations have been excellent, and this has just been a fascinating meeting, and really exciting to see all these different initiatives that are moving forward. And then one kind of basic clarification for me, but is one of the primary purposes of pre-AP to broaden, to diversify and broaden the number of folks that have the opportunity to be on an AP track, right?
Because so in certain states, they have not traditionally, so Arkansas and Texas and some of the, like, what the College Board would call like their Southwest region, we have basically turned pre-AP into our honors track, like in Arkansas. So, when I was in school, that's what it was. Pre-AP was basically the honors track, but that was really never the College Board's intention for pre-AP. They just wanted students who were in those classes to get the skills and strategies for AP. And so now that the College Board is taking back the pre-AP kind of brand, I guess, then they want that to be available to every student. And so that every student will have that preparation. When they get to 11th grade English, they can decide whether or not they want to take it or not, but they will know that they have the skills and the strategies. So yes, diversity and preparing every student is a big push.
And we do, and at some level, potential AP students are identified by teachers, right?
Well, I mean, we have had open enrollment, which is the College Board's position. We have gone back and forth with teacher recommendations, having them and not having them different years.
Okay.
That hasn't been super consistently done exactly the same way every year, but there have been times when we've done that. I think last year we had teacher recommendations, but students could still take the classes even if they weren't recommended. So.
Okay, great. Well, for that reason, I think it's even more exciting to hear that that some of the equity and implicit bias, training is available, because, very, well-meaning folks we all have implicit bias. So anyway, I just thank you guys for your vulnerability and being up here.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move now into new business, and we're going to get into a series of policies here. I think Dr. Tucker and Greg Moniz might be handling some of these, but first up we have the ADE resolution, and this is the 5% salary thing. And Greg, are you going to handle that one?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So why don't you go ahead and just step us through it.
Yeah, thank you, President Eichmann, Superintendent Colbert, and members of the board. Pursuant to Arkansas Code Annotated 635, local school boards are required to review and approve an employee's increase in pay of 5% or more from one fiscal year to the next. And for the purposes of this year's presentation, we are looking at school years 2017 to 18 versus 2018 to 19. So anybody with a pay increase of 5% or more from 17-18 to the 18-19 school years. In your packets, you'll find a number of documents, but the first one is attached a copy of the state statute for your reading, a draft of a proposed resolution that the statute requires us to adopt, and then two spreadsheets. Attachment A is the spreadsheet of the certified staff that had a 5% or greater pay increase from those 2 school years, and attachment B is a listing of the classified staff. In those reports, you'll see the employee's name and the reason for the increase. Those are the items that are required by the law. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Questions for Greg? This is an annual resolution that we get.
I still wonder what the motivation was for the legislation, because I assume in some district somewhere, somebody got a raise, someone wasn't happy about it and claimed not to know about it. So if someone, even paying out sick leave to employees who depart.
I can answer that. I've done field work in a lot of
Well,
places
good.
where weird stuff happens, and this was an effort to make it more transparent for the public. It's
There it is,
Yeah.
in all its glory.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for Greg? All right. This is new business, so we'll see it next month.
Yeah,
on
we'll be
old
back
business.
next month for asking for approval of the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And Dr. Tucker, are you up for the policies?
Yes, sir.
Great. If you just want to step us through them,
Okay.
instead of, I won't introduce each one, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Is that all right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
These are policies that we presented last month. We started with policy 5.1, which is residency requirements, and it's basically an expansion of the definition of the person who may enroll a child in school. And a lot of this originated around the military compact for military families. Policy 5.34 is the school health policy, and this is a result of Act 851, which requires schools to keep asthma inhalers or albuterol on hand and administer those in an emergency situation. It also allows, as a result of Act 247, allows students to self-administer topical sunscreen. So that's the health policy. Policy 5.4 was on student transfers. I'm doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got,
So sorry, I skipped to the old business. Let me start over with my new business, new policies. I'm so sorry.
we're at 5.2 entrance.
Sorry about that, y'all. Okay, new policies. I was trying to be so efficient. We began with a resolution, a request for a resolution to allow us to update any of our policies that referenced the Arkansas Department of Education, which is now known as the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That would just prevent us from having to bring all of the policies to you in singular fashion and make that update in every policy that references that.
Yeah, I think we're on 5.2.
Yeah, I still have this in the wrong
Entrance,
section.
yeah. It's 5.2.
5.2, entrance requirements, thank you.
We only have like 12 policies on the agenda.
Yeah.
So, we'll
Related
give you
to-
plenty of leeway.
Related to 5.1 and Act 171, where that was on residency requirements, policy 5.2 is on entrance requirements. It does include some information on students who've been enrolled in kindergarten in another state. This particularly applied to those military children that were coming to us from other states. And actually, I had Dr. Scott pull the information. We have 95 families in our district whose parents are active military. So it is a higher number than I think most of us thought. And so he's already been in contact with school counselors to apprise them of these new guidelines that are a part of Act 171. So basically, we're including that new information about if they've been in a kindergarten in another state. And again, enrollment by any of those guardians that may be appointed. Many military families have guardianship appointed when they have to maybe leave the country for active duty. The next policy is 5.41 and 5.41.1, and these are the SMART Core curriculum guidance documents from the Department of Education. For 5.41 is the class of 2020, which is this year's senior class. Really, the only change is a simplification of the science requirements. For SMART Core, students had to have a physical science, biology, and then the third science had to come from a prescribed list of science courses in order to qualify for SMART Core. Under the new guidelines, it can be any third science. So they still have to have a physical science, a biology, and then any third science will meet the SMART Core requirements as long as it is a state-approved course. Policy 5.41.1 is for the class of 2021 and thereafter. It contains that same update on science courses, but it also includes information on the alternate pathway to graduation. For many years in Arkansas, students with special needs could graduate from high school based on the completion of the requirements as outlined in their IEP. They got a traditional diploma, but it wasn't necessarily credit-based. So the department has released new guidelines for graduation for our students with developmental delays and special needs, and they have to meet the state graduation requirements for credits, and they've outlined which courses those students can take in order to earn those credits, and that is outlined on this alternate pathway to graduation. So this will impact the classes of 2021 and thereafter. Mrs. Curtis and her team have already made the appropriate changes on students' IEPs. They did that last spring, so our kids that will have to meet those graduation requirements are well on their way to doing so because they were very forward-thinking. Policy 5.59 is a new policy for the district. In years past, Act 430, there was a law in Arkansas that said you could or you may have a policy that allowed private school or homeschool students to take academic courses. Act 430 of 2019 changed the word may to shall. So every district shall have a policy about allowing homeschool or private school students to come take an academic course. This policy's been in place for the students that wanted to come participate in interscholastic activities. So now they've just expanded that to include academic courses. After some conversations with Dr. Hudson, Dr. Dostal, David Watkins, and David McClure, we powwowed and looked at the guidance that came from the Arkansas School Boards Association and have a sample policy for you to look at over the next month. And if you want to make recommendations, obviously we can discuss that next month if we need to pull that policy back and make some changes. We did, after contacting some other school districts very similar in our size, their policies that they were implementing were going to be for secondary students only. And I would encourage you to consider that. We do have some parents that request participation in some elementary classes, particularly the encore classes, art, music, PE. It is much more challenging at the elementary level for a couple of reasons. First of all, we are staffed much more efficiently at the elementary levels than we are at the secondary level. Also, those classes are many times offered one time per week. So fourth grade kids go to art on this day at this particular time. So we have very little flexibility in offering opportunities for parents, because if they can't come at that particular time, we can't put a fourth grade homeschool student in with third grade because it violates our standards, because the curriculum in those grade levels is very specific by grade level. When you get to the secondary classes, most of those classes are open and can be more flexible in which grade level students can be enrolled in those classes. So that policy will, I encourage you to spend some time looking over it. We've worked really hard, and I appreciate Dr. Dostal has provided a lot of input, and he's been very, very invaluable in the development of that policy. And then the last one that I have for you in this month in new business is the recess policy 5.68. And again, we had new legislation in 2019. Act 641 increased the recess activity time from 20 minutes to 40 minutes. That change has been made in our schedules. Our elementary schools are meeting that requirement. We just need to update the policy to match that. So those are the
Do we have
new policies.
5.7 as well? Is that
yes,
new?
and I'm sorry to say that that's a very public demonstration of my mistake, because
That's okay.
5.7 was introduced last month, so it should have been in the old business for
Okay.
to
Well,
be
let's-
voted on this month.
Dr. Tucker, I have a question about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
recess policy.
What's that? Or, let me see how I do
That
that.
little swirl at the top.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I see.
With recess,
Yes, ma'am.
it's now classified as instructional time.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
What kind of some of our elementary schools use recess time still as reward and punishment, right? So like if you mess up, your recess time gets deducted, and that it seems like if that's instructional time, that's got to be not legal. And I wonder about, I mean, it's not my personal preference that it be done anyway, because I feel like children need to move, but I wonder what guidance we're giving in buildings around that, if it is instructional time.
I'm going to allow the
That's
executive
perfect.
director of
Love it.
elementary education.
Thank you. I will address that because we have had conversations about that, and we do want kids to be moving. It is instructional time, so we will find alternate methods of consequences.
Okay.
Yes.
Just asking, thanks.
Yeah.
Kids need to move.
They do.
Adults need to move.
Yes, we should all get up and do some push-ups.
I'd sign them up for pre-AP. That's what I'd do,
Yes,
send them right in.
pre-AP gym.
I just have, I'm trying to figure out why we are adjusting these science requirements for the class of 2020, considering I mean, I know it's mandated by the state, these changes, but, I mean, they registered for these classes in
Right.
March.
Actually, what it did is it relaxed the standards somewhat, so
Yeah.
some students are actually going to qualify for the SMART core requirement now where they may not have in the past.
But I think the intent of this law was to encourage kids to take computer science classes, right? Because the computer science now qualifies as a science
Right.
course, and so.
That's not new. That's been in place for the last several years.
Oh, okay, I
Mhm.
thought
That
this
was
was.
that was passed in 2017. So
The
what
fact
happens
that-
now, if I took physical science and biology and then anatomy and physiology, last year I would not have qualified to be a SMART core graduate, but now I do. Mhm.
I thought this was adding the whole idea of computer science, but I see, yeah, that was there first. Okay. And then the same is true of biology. Just, it's all about whether or not they qualify for that
Right.
level of graduation. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
And the importance of meeting those SMART core qualifications is it allows you to be eligible for the lottery scholarship. Okay. And those are the new policies that I would ask you to consider. Any other questions?
Questions about new policies, and we'll move over to old policies.
I was trying to find it. I keep pulling up the wrong policy. There was one policy that looked like we were taking out the part where students' ability to get a driver's license was impacted by, was that the unexcused absences piece? So that's dropped back down to the other one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll get to that one. I'll follow your lead.
That's all right.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's go ahead and move over to old business, and we can start with the ADE resolution.
Finally, we get to do these I've been so excited about.
This is the most important resolution of the night, the name change, so.
Yes, sir. Just asking you to approve the resolution to replace Arkansas Department of Education in any of our policies with the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Questions for Dr. Tucker on that one? If not, we can take a motion at this time to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
I have a motion from Tim. Is there a second from Bob? Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, the ayes have it. Let's see, 7-0, and I guess vote on our thing here.
Thank you. Policy 5.1 is on residency requirements. It's just an expansion of the definition of that person who may enroll a child in school. And this originated in the discussion around the Military Compact and Act 171 of 2019.
Any discussion or questions, or let me do this first. Any questions for Dr. Tucker regarding revisions to policy 5.1? All right, is there a motion?
Move Move that we accept policy 5.1, residence requirements as presented.
Motion by Nika, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Keaton. Any discussion on this policy? Any discussion from the floor? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Next up is policy 5.34, school health policy.
5.34 the school health policy has been updated pursuant to Act 247 and Act 851. It would allow a student to self-administer topical sunscreen, and it also will require the school nurse to keep asthma inhalers on hand and allow school personnel to administer those in an emergency situation.
A motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Megan. Any discussion by the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Next up is policy 5.4, student transfers.
Policy 5.4 has been updated to include clarifying language for a student that attempts to enroll in a public school after being expelled from another district. The law actually requires that a student have an opportunity for a board hearing to allow or deny them that enrollment. So we've just updated that policy to include that language.
I move that we accept policy 5.4 as presented. Sorry, did I jump the gun?
No, you're good. I have a motion by Nika and a second by Tim. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next up, it's policy 5.7.
Here's
unexcused
Mr. Hudson's
absences.
policy,
the Hudson
5.7 on unexcused absence.
Just think of you when we think of
Yes,
unexcused absences.
the,
I got my driver's license despite having lots of absences.
The legislation was passed this spring to remove the requirement from schools to provide what we used to call the C form. It also actually required schools to notify the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration if a student's grade point average ever dropped below a C average. And I can't speak for the Fayetteville School District, but I can tell you in the district that I worked in before, that never happened. And I think that's probably why it was deleted from the law. And then we also are just updating pursuant to Arkansas Code 618-222, which says that when a student has 3 unexcused absences, his or her parent has to be notified by the end of the following school day. So it speeds up that notification requirement, but that's actually in legislation. So our policy was not correct.
Questions for Dr. Tucker? That one. Okay, so. good.
Policy 5.7 on unexcused absences.
All right.
Second.
A motion by Tim, second by Bob. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Next up is policy 5.80, immunizations.
Right. Again, this policy is being updated pursuant to recently passed legislation. Act 676 requires districts to collect specific information on immunizations and make that information public on the website. So we would have to publish by school the numbers and percentages of students that are have a waiver from the immunization. And that waiver has to be approved by the Department of Health.
I move that we accept policy 5.8 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Megan and second by Nika. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. Next up is policy 5.9, school choice.
Last but not least, we have policy 5.9. We are updating this pursuant to Act 171, which updates the requirements for school choice. It relaxes that May 1st deadline for children who have parents who are active military, and gives them a 15-day window after moving to an area to request school choice. So that's the major change to that policy.
I move that we accept policy 5.9, school choice, as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Nika, second by Megan. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, motion passes. All right, that concludes our old business, and that will actually conclude our meeting. On the agenda was a request for waiver that is pulled right before the meeting. So this will adjourn our business for tonight. Thank you very much.